What's up, guys? We're back again. This time I'm giving a little bit of an update about the Old to Gold project. So, it's been about a week, and it's like a Wednesday right now. I went ahead and after we primed everything, I went ahead and I patched up some spots. It just didn't look too good. This is a little piece of plow plate that I'm going to go in and then sand down and get looking pretty good. You know, get it looking pretty flat. It's not bad now, but it needs to be flatter. And then, of course, went ahead and I fixed some of the seams that were still visible and primed over them again with a brush primer. But yeah, so far things have worked out pretty good. Now, I want to do something a little weird and unconventional for the painting process. I generally don't use testors. I think testors is kind of an outdated brand, but the local hobby store in my area had testors paints for $1 each. I'm going to use this midnight blue. Hold on a second, let me get the actual color name for you. Try to focus it in here with my bad eyes. No, shouldn't have my bad eyes, my caffeine addicted eyes. Oh, well, nice. I turn it around to the side that has nothing on it. Okay, the color is sea blue. Basically almost a black. Good color, probably the only color I could find at my hobby store that wasn't pretty much blue. I mean, at Hobby Lobby a while ago I picked up this color, which is Titan's Blue, which, I mean, Titan's Blue is pretty close, but it's not dark enough. This seems like it's a little bit darker. But this stuff I also bought because I'm going for kind of period accurate. Like when this model would have come out, one of the few things that builders in the West would have had access to would have been testors. Now, of course, when these were coming out in the 90s and 2000s, obviously, Western modelers would have had to deal with a lot of crappy things. I was there right at the tail end of that in the 2010s when, you know, we started getting things like Tamiya and Mr. Hobby and other things like that. It made this so much easier to do, but the principle still stood that up until like 2002, well, honestly, till about 2007, if you're from where I am in the States, this was your only option. This was it. So if you were just getting started in hobbying, as you know, the standard hobby shop is dying. So, you know, the only options were what your local hobby, in quotation marks, store had. For most people, that's Hobby Lobby. Before Hobby Lobby started carrying Vallejo and Mr. Color, sometimes Tamiya, it's always been these. Nothing wrong with testors. I mean, testors has always worked. It's been a thing for like 60 years. It's not like testors has really proven themselves to be a bad product. They're great for what they are, but that's the problem, is things have changed so much in the past 40 years specifically that it kind of seems a bit redundant to keep using testors when you have better stuff that's easier to work with. And you see we got little Duo Maxwell over here cheering us on for his mobile suit. And yeah, I figured in this video we would at least get around to getting the blue laid out. We're not going to do any pre-shading just yet. I want to kind of just see how the blue is going to look first. And if I don't like it, it's not like I've done much. I can always prime back over it. That is one thing I will admit with testors enamels. They are pretty easy to work with. They're relatively straightforward. They do have a learning curve, but they're pretty much idiot-proof. Kind of. I say that because they're everybody's first beginner product, but they can be pretty bad. I mean, I've seen some pretty horrendous things with testors. Let me adjust the camera and we'll get back to it. Okay, so ignore the glue cap. I got a couple of things I'm going to do here. This is the thinner. This I bought at Hobby Lobby. Again, this was like $1 because Hobby Lobby's trying to get rid of all this since, well, I mean, this stuff's pretty caustic, and I'm relatively sure they don't want it in their stores much longer. But this is your thinner. Now, essentially what you're going to want to do is, when you mix these, you go 1-to-1 ratio. Most people who do car modeling generally will take a whole bottle of this and a whole bottle of this, pour them into their mixing cup, and then, you know, put that into their airbrush, spray it, and you're good. I'm not going to do that because, well, one, that's a waste of paint. That's the biggest reason. It's a waste of product, but also, we're not painting that big of an area. There's really no point in doing that. Plus, I only have one bottle of these. So, I mean, if I waste all this, I have to go back to my local hobby shop thinking and hoping they have this, because, you know, calling a hobby shop's not going to do much. I was stupid. I bought 2 things of thinner when I should have bought 2 things of paint. Whatever, though. I've also got another color, which is this other enamel. It's like a real bright fluorescent green. This one was $1 at Hobby Lobby too. That's pretty good. This one is Sublime Green. This is bright. This is a bright, bright, bright green. Let me show you here. This is, well, it's not gonna help me. Yeah, there we go. That's a nice bright green. That's good for essentially the plasma effect. It's a lot more yellow off camera too, by the way, so if you're wondering, does it look this green? No, it's more of a yellow in real life. This is a gloss finish, so it's not too bad of a thing, it being a gloss finish. We can work with that. As for the yellow, I don't want to screw around with yellow enamel. I'm going to be brutally honest with you. That stuff sucks. It's terrible. Yellow enamel has some of the worst coverage of anything you could get. So I'm going to use my preferred yellow, which I know it's kind of breaking my rule of using 90s products. Tamiya acrylic flat yellow. It'll work. It's good enough. Plus, would have existed in the 90s anyway. Ain't complaining too much. Although, I don't know how this will interact with enamel. I might do that on a separate card and let y'all know at some point. But yeah, Tamiya yellow works perfect, especially for what we need. Also, one piece of advice when you plan on testing the colors of your models, if you're at like a Hobby Lobby, I'm not sure if you can do this, but most hobby shops don't care if you do this and you hold them up next to each other and go, yeah, that looks pretty good. Hobby Lobby is going to, of course, be a little anal about it sometimes, depending on the employee. I mean, they're a retail business. They're going to be. It's going to happen. But as for the highlights of the blue, I'm going to use Mr. Color Aqueous. Again, this didn't exist in the 90s, but again, it's the only blue I could find that I liked. And I'm going to use a Mr. Hobby Character Red for the red parts. I know it's a lacquer base. It'll work. It's good enough. I probably will use another Mr. Hobby color at some point. I'm going to use Tamiya Neutral Gray for the inner frame parts and the gray bits. I have another old kit from the 90s that I would love to work on. That's from G Gundam. It's one of my favorite G Gundam suits. And, you know, the best girl of G Gundam piloting it, Rain. I've got a Rising Gundam, but I can't find a good metallic sky blue for that inner frame. Now, as for the main body of the mobile suit, there are some plans I've got with it. I don't really want to go a traditional white. I think a traditional white would be a bit jarring between the more gothic tone and color scheme that the Death Scythe goes for. So, for that, I'm going to mix a little bit of Gundam White, which is already kind of a bluey white. Its cap is pretty true to the color. It's kind of a bluish white. I might add just a tiny, tiny, tiny drop of Phantom Gray in here from Mr. Hobby. And then I will put a little bit of water in there and get it thin. Get it almost to the color of our primer, which is like this, super light gray. Because, again, that's more accurate. But before we do that, I'm gonna work in steps. I just want to get the blue one first to see how it's gonna look. Obviously, I mean, it's the most important color of the mobile suit. So we're gonna give that a shot. Now, let me get something to mix these up with. I've not worked with this stuff since, well, I've been a wee lad, a wee little child, doing stuff way back in the early 2000s with my allowance and stuff. So I know you're supposed to shake this stuff real good though. I'm gonna be honest with you. I might just shake this off camera. I've got a drill under my desk with a little paint stirrer that I 3D printed that I honestly might just stick in there and shake for like 2.5 minutes. Call it a day. I don't really trust this stuff. Actually, you know what? Let me see if I have any agitators left. I don't think I do. Okay, well, I don't. That's not a big deal though. Oh well. We'll just mix it up by hand. Looks like it's already pre-mixed pretty good. So we're gonna just stick a little stirrer in there. Stir things up. Stir things up pretty good. I know the lighting looks a bit weird at the moment, I'm sorry, but you know, overhead light. Yeah, stirred it pretty good. I mean, when the whole stick is that color, yeah, it's mixed up pretty good. God, that smell brings back memories. And we're gonna just take our pipette, siphon out a little bit. Not a ton, because again, we're just kind of testing it out. And I really don't care how it's gonna look. We do about probably 2 pipettes full. Now, remember where we kept our line here. Let me go ahead and close up the blue. I don't want to spill this all over my desk. This stuff's kind of hard to clean up. Well, you'd expect it to be. It's friggin' enamel. It's gonna be hard to clean up. Put that off the side so my clumsy self doesn't nudge it. And then we're gonna take our thinner, and I might just use the same pipette I did. I will. Let me just wipe the tip off. Because again, we're trying to go for somewhat accuracy here. Get it in frame first. Okay, and we're gonna just put it in, siphon it up, put a little more in. I'm not worried about really messing up a bottle of thinner. It's $1. If I need more, I'll go to Hobby Lobby and get more. It's not that hard. But let me mix this up into the consistency I've got first. Consistency is this, you want kind of a skim milk consistency. Stuff's already pretty thin to start with though, so that's pretty good for airbrushing. I've never really thought about airbrushing this stuff, to be honest. I mean, I think the biggest reason why is because I kind of wrote it off. I thought, oh, you know, this is kid stuff when, you know, you used it as a kid and it was kind of crap then, and you're like, oh, I don't want to use this ever again. Turns out it's not crap, it's just cheap. Now, I'm gonna go readjust angles. I'll meet you guys at the spray booth. All right, guys, we're at the spray booth right now, and I'm really not concerned too much about messing up the rest of the model. I just want to go ahead and get the blue sprayed. It might be a little loud right now due to the fact that I've got an air compressor on and I've got the booth on in the back. I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to get this all prepped and ready. So we're going to use our Neo Eco like we normally do. It's all prepped and ready and clean. Just going to get everything poured in there and ready to go. That should be enough. I mean, it's a lot of blue anyway. And I'm just going to test this on a glove real quick. Make sure I didn't over thin it. No, it's like I thinned it pretty good. So I'm going to try to keep it pointed towards the wall. I'm just going to start slowly building up color. Looks like this is one of those types of deals. You're gonna have to slowly build up color, which is fine. I mean, it doesn't bother me any. Like I said at the start of this, I don't really care about if it looks bad. It's only paint. I can paint back over it. We're kind of just hitting all the areas we're going to hit anyway. Obviously, we're trying to flood areas with paint, so, you know, I don't know how this stuff's going to really do if you flood it into an area. I'm assuming bad. Should have taken care of that little arm patch, but we'll get to that. Tell you one thing, stuff dries pretty quick. That's good. I mean, yeah, so far I'm pretty impressed. It's not too bad. It takes a couple of coats for it to cover properly, but I could happily paint with this. Like I said, I ain't trying to get to be too pretty for the most part. I mean, two reasons. One, I'm mostly testing the color, and two, I don't really mind if it looks a little off. Yeah, it's not too bad. I quite like that. I'm going to go ahead and clean up the airbrush and let you guys know how it cleans up, and I'll meet you guys back at the hobby desk. Well, we're back. Well, we're back to the desk right now, and I gotta admit, this stuff dries surprisingly very quickly and dries to a nice flat finish. I might need to go in and do a second coat on some of this stuff because it's a little light in some areas. I'm sure that's just because, though, I didn't put enough layers on it. My first complaint, though, that I will admit is that it is kind of a pain to get out of the airbrush. You kind of have to sit there and let your airbrush soak with some kind of thinner in it. I'm using my Simple Green concoction, but I mean, that's not difficult, though. That's not a problem. Still, though, it's kind of a downside. Nothing I'm not used to, though. I mean, as long as you're not using like a $400 airbrush setup, you should be good. I mean, I'm using a $30 airbrush. If I got to repack the airbrush, I got to repack the airbrush. But yeah, again, not usually the way I would go about doing this, but I kind of acted as appreciating in spots, so I'm not complaining. But I am going to go ahead and once this is dry, I'm going to hit it with a second coat, and then I'm going to go ahead and get some of the other parts of this primed in a lighter color, like a gray or a white. Probably do that with the V-fin and the vent in the chest and all the parts that are going to be a light color. I'm going to go ahead and reprime using a paintbrush. No reason not to. I mean, it's going to work. It'll look fine. So, and I'll probably, in the next video, we'll go ahead and probably do all the whites. So that again takes up the majority of the kit. And then we'll do things like the reds here and here, do the yellow parts, you know, all that fun jazz. But hopefully this wasn't too boring for you guys hearing me ramble about enamel and paint for almost 30 minutes. So I'll see you guys in the next video, the next update of the Death Scythe. I'll see you all then.